Hi everyone, welcome to Under the Gun. I'm Jon Friedberg and I have another great show for you guys today. My guests on today's panel are going to be Justin Bonomo and Isaac Haxton, who I will talk a little bit more about later before we get to the panel. Of course, also I will be breaking into my news segment, Forum Photoshopaments, which I started last week. We're going to have a lot of fun with that one. Of course, talk about my Under the Gun Challenge, which is my attempt to win $100,000 playing online cash games, mostly 1-2 and 2-4 on UB.com, as well as winning my World Series of Poker main event seat, also on UB, of course. But first, I have a bone to pick with somebody that is going to apply to a lot of you guys watching this show right now. And here's the deal. A good friend of mine who is one of the best online cash game players, wins a ton of money, has been approached by several online training sites, poker training sites, and he finally gave in, which I'm not going to say who he is or what the site is, but it appears that he is finally giving in to start doing some training videos. Now, here's my issue with that. If you're one of the best poker players in the world, and even if you're not, but if you're a great poker player and you're winning online and you're beating the crap out of these cash games, why would you want to go and teach the rest of the world how to play as good as you? Now, obviously, it takes a lot of mental talent and other skills and whatnot to be very good at poker, like most of you trainers are. But unless you own the site, where is the real advantage of exposing your game to everybody and making all the games tougher than they already are? It really makes no sense to me, and when my friend had mentioned that he was doing this, it almost makes me mad to think about why. Now, here's another business, or let's call this business 101 for a lot of poker players that maybe don't think about it this way. Let's say that you decide to do some training videos for a site. You're probably going to get paid about $500, maybe $1,000 a video. Few people get paid more than that, but the average is like $500, sometimes $1,000. Now, what you're doing is, for $500 per video, you're strengthening your opponents, you're revealing how you think and how you play the game, and worst of all, you're making somebody else rich. If you don't run the site, you're making pennies, and the guy who's running the site, or the people who are running the site, are making hundreds of thousands probably, if not millions. So consider this. On the average poker training site, customers have to pay a $100 sign-up fee, plus they're paying, let's just say, $20 a month, okay? So if a site has 1,000 members, which isn't very many, let's say a site has 1,000 members, that's $100,000 in sign-up fees that they've accumulated, the site that you're getting paid $500 a video from, plus 1,000 members times $20, so $20,000 a month. Now, again, you're creating all the content, you're toughening your competition, and you're making somebody else rich for nothing. You're making a few $100s a month or per video or whatever. It's really not worth it in my opinion, and it's really pissing me off, all these great players that are doing that. You're not going to really, unless you really enjoy teaching, or if you're not teaching the stakes that you're playing or the games that you really regularly play, I guess maybe it makes a little sense. But realistically, for a few $100, you're making somebody else rich. If you want to be a poker trainer, just start your own site. It just doesn't make sense to me from a business standpoint, and I wish more of you guys, before signing with these training sites, would at least consider that. Start your own site. Talk to me about what it takes to start a business. Hire me as an advisor or a consultant or whatever, and we can get you going easily. Stop making other people rich and ruining the cash games that myself and so many other people are trying to make a good living from. Okay, and on a more calm subject, a much more happy subject, if you will, I mentioned last week about my World Series backing idea, how I was going to be sending out an email to some people. Well, I did that, and luckily I was able to find success. I actually have a couple of blocks still available. I have 2 5% blocks still available, or 1 10%, depending on how you look at it. For my schedule, I'll be playing in $45,000 of events. I'm doing a 50-50 split with 100% makeup. So in essence, I've valued my buy-ins at $90,000. A 10% investment would be $9,000. And then, of course, if I cash for less than $45,000, the investors will get their pro rata portion of their investment back, and then if I cash for more than $45,000, they will get their full investment back, plus whatever percentage they own of the profits. So I'm happy that I sent an email out about 4 days ago, got some pretty quick responses. I just have $9,000 more to sell, which I know will go very quickly, and the World Series is right around the corner. I can't wait. I'm a little bit pissed off at my family for scheduling a 7-day Alaskan cruise leaving on June 4th, so I have to miss like 8 days of the World Series right at the beginning, but I'm still going to be able to play in at least 20 events, so it's right around the corner. Cannot wait for that. I'm sure most of us are very excited about the World Series coming up. The thread that I chose for this episode's forum Photoshopaments is titled Phil Ivey Photoshop Potential. Now, it all started with one photo, as you can see here, by a fellow named JB, who posted a picture of Phil Ivey getting a massage, thought that there was a good opportunity here to get some good Photoshopaments on it, and that's exactly what happened. So one of the first changes to this photo was by Goosebumps, who just switched Ivy's face with Durr's face, and there's actually quite a bit of that in this thread, which is really funny. French Newbie came out with some great movie posters here and a new record label. The first one here is Avatard, where basically, as you can see here, Ivy and his masseuse are both avatars. And then, of course, there is one of the poker favorites, Rakeback Fountain, here with Howard Lederer and Phil Ivey. Now, I didn't know Phil was a musician, but it certainly looks like it here in the Nirvana album cover, where Phil is chasing that dollar bill. That one is absolutely hilarious in my opinion. Dr. Spaceman created a pretty funny Pac-Man game here with Phil Ivey's face. Hodson PL Odds, I don't know if I'm saying that name right, but created a Simpson character here. That's pretty funny. He's pouring a bottle of something out on the side of the couch. Ryan's Photo created Dwan Bank Redemption after the Shawshank Redemption movie poster here with Ivy and Durr. Also, not forgetting to put Ivy's open mouth face on the bottom there. Good stuff. Johnny Dazzle. This, I don't know where the hell Ivy and Barry were in this photo, but they're getting abused GIMP fashion here. That one's pretty funny. Now, to the felt, this picture is like, I don't know, Starry Night or something. This is like real artwork. I almost feel like it shouldn't even be included in the comedy section because the artwork is so great. But wow, great job on that. She Doesn't Like It posted a pretty funny picture here with, like, I don't know, Thomas Jefferson or George Washington or somebody. I didn't realize that Phil Ivey had relatives going back that far in American history. No Tit for Tat created the chocolate pudding Ivy face. That's a good one. What else do we have here? Phi Alpha with the, I'm going to call it the Phil Ivey corn. This one, I'm guessing that was a Halloween costume when he dressed up for recently. Valdo created a pretty hot photo here with Phil right between a couple of breasts. Nice looking breasts too, I might add. Now, the last two here are my favorites. Ron Mexico created this Time magazine cover, which I have to say is absolutely phenomenal. If you look closely, which might be tough on the screen, but each one of those pictures really are Phil Ivey pictures. So this is like an actual, real collage of Phil Ivey photos making, of course, the Phil Ivey massage photo. Great work, Ron Mexico. And I'd have to say one of my favorite photos here is from Jack High. Now, Phil's getting lucky here by a lady with dark hair, great figure, and a tattoo that says, "Say yes when nobody asks." Now, if I recall, there's a very, very great female poker player named Annie Duke who has this tattoo. Now, I didn't realize that Annie and Phil were involved, but this is proof that clearly they have some sort of history together, and I wonder if they knew the camera was around when this happened. I'm just teasing Annie. I know that's not really you, but that is a very funny Photoshopament. So with the forum Photoshopaments behind us now, let's move into my Under the Gun challenge. I'm pleased to say that I had a good week. I made some progress in my Under the Gun challenge this week. I played about 4,500 hands of 1-2 no limit on UB, and I unfortunately didn't have a whole lot of time to play. I didn't get to play as many hands as I would have wanted to, which seems to be a recurring trend with me. But that said, I did end up winning $1,100 this week in only 4,500 hands. Pretty happy with that. As you can see here in the chart, I got off to a killer start, just absolutely did great, and then took a pretty sick downturn, and then recovered towards the later part of the week. So again, finished 1,100. So for this month, that puts me up 1,300 and played about 21,000 hands this month. So again, lower volume than what I'm looking forward to playing later. However, in my first month of playing online cash games, I have to say I am pretty impressed with myself profiting this month. These games are not easy by any stretch of the imagination, and I'm learning a lot, making a lot of adjustments, so very happy with that. Have not, however, put much time into winning a World Series seat, but starting next week, I will be really putting forth a lot of effort to win my seat to the main event on UB.com. Now, before I introduce my guests for today's show, I just wanted to let you know that next week I will be taking my camera crew, my huge, excellent camera crew, over to Temecula, California, where I will be playing in Matt Savage's golf tournament. It's an annual invitational tournament. This will be my first time playing in the tournament, so I'm excited about that. I'm going to bring the camera crew to the course, hopefully get a chance to talk to Matt and some other players that I'll be playing, or some other poker players that I'll be playing golf with. I'm excited about that. But that said, let me get to my introductions for today's guests. I have on two absolute superstars in the poker world. In my first episode of Under the Gun, I was talking with Eric Baldwin and Sorel Mitzi about the very few players who have excelled at both tournaments and cash games. I would have to say that if you look at results, the two players today, Justin Bonomo and Isaac Haxton, are probably number 1 and 2 in the world at doing well in tournaments as well as cash games. Now, maybe I shouldn't say 1 and 2 in the world. Obviously, Ivey is up there, and maybe a couple others. My point is, these guys are absolute brilliant talent on the tables, whether it's tournaments or cash games. Both of these guys will be playing, I don't think in the same episode, but they both will be appearing on the new TV show coming up called The Big Game on Fox, and they've also made several TV appearances, had lots of great results both in World Series events and World Poker Tour, etc., etc. That said, let's get them on the show. All right, Isaac Haxton, Justin Bonomo, thank you guys for coming on the show.
Thanks for having us.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So you guys are like amongst the elitist of the elite cash game players. So what is the scene like in today's really high stakes online and live cash games like?
Lots of fun for starters.
I'm much more familiar with online than live. I don't play a ton of high-stakes live cash. I think a lot of the high-stakes live cash right now is going on in private games that I'm not necessarily invited to. Obviously, there are big games that run at the Bellagio and so forth from time to time.
Now, the pretty much all stakes in across the board in online poker have gotten really tough because mostly from all these training videos that I just despise. But I mean, what is the field like in the highest games? Are they tougher now than they used to be, or are they softer, or are they just really always tough anyway?
Yeah, it's definitely a lot tougher. I think every single year, both live and online games have gotten a lot tougher. I think online, there's just so much sharing of information, so many groups of people sharing strategies specifically that it gets a lot tougher at a faster rate.
Yeah. Most of the biggest action in No Limit these days, I mean almost all of the action above 100, 200, and most of the action above 2550 is heads up. And I think that players have gotten a lot better at heads up No Limit, especially in the last 6 months or so. But consistently, I've been playing mainly heads up for the last 3 years or so, and consistently players have been getting better every year, and the last 6 months have been particularly rapid improvement.
Now, I understand you guys also put in a lot of hands against Dur and also Isildur or Isildur, depending on how you say his name. What's it like to play against those guys, Dur in particular?
Their styles are very different. You really have a different experience based on who you're playing against at the moment. Dur is obviously a really tough opponent. I know one thing he does that's insane that I can't do. Ike plays like 8 tables at a time against him. I don't know how you
Dur
guys
loves
do that.
to play a lot of tables, and so do I. So does Isildur, for that matter, actually.
Yeah.
I've played 8 tables against both of them before.
Heads up?
Yeah, and usually play at least 6 when I'm playing those guys.
Yeah, Isildur got me playing 6 against him, and I have to admit that was definitely a huge mistake for me. I can do 4 fine, but 6 is a little bit too much for me.
I'm personally not a heads-up player, so I don't think I've ever even tried playing more than, a few table, or more than probably 2 tables heads-up, which is probably just when I was in sit-and-goes and ended up, down to heads-up. But I don't know how I mean, that's kind of a different topic on, how you multi-table heads-up, but that's pretty amazing, to do in the first place. But is there, I mean, I would think when you sit down at a table and you're waiting for opponents, you're obviously hoping that some very wealthy fish sits down to play with you.
Right.
Do you find a lot of the time that you won't play against certain other players, or certain players won't play against you? So let's say that you're sitting down waiting for someone to join you at a heads-up table, and then are you ever joined by a player that you're just not willing to play against?
No. I'll play anybody.
Yeah, I was playing everybody for a while. Now I've kind of humbled up a little bit, and there's a few people I won't play, for sure.
Okay. Now, both of you guys are involved in the new show coming up on Fox called The Big Game.
Yep.
And I know, Isaac, you've had a lot of experience commentating, and Justin, you've also had some experience playing in some televised cash games. What is it like? I mean, how different is it when you're playing very high-stakes games, single table with cameras rolling, lights in your face for a TV production? How different is that than when you're playing online?
There's a lot of little differences. I mean, for the most part, it's obviously the same game. I'm kind of weird that the main thing that gets to me is, like, every time I play live poker, I hold my cards a certain way. But when you play with hole cams, there's like 6 inches raised to the felt, and it's like really awkward for me to hold my cards anyway when I do that. So that kind of tilts me.
That actually is frustrating. There's like no good, comfortable way to look at your hole cards on those TV tables that have the big raised ring around them.
Yeah, but I mean, there's a couple other differences, obviously. Bathroom breaks are like scheduled and stuff. On the last show we did, someone at the table was basically begging the producers for a bathroom break. I mean, they gave him one, obviously, but also, like, a lot of times it's really hot under the lights. You start sweating and stuff. For the most part, it's the same game.
Now, you're obviously playing way, way fewer hands when you're playing at a televised table, or even, single tabling live versus online. Does that ever make you guys, or does that ever make either of you impatient, or maybe try to, create scenarios or manufacture hands when generally you would typically just muck pre-flop and not even get involved in a pot?
Maybe a little bit, but I've played a lot of live poker at this point, and I think I'm pretty good at not just getting bored and doing something stupid.
Now, what about you, Justin? Are you the same in that aspect?
I've kind of brainwashed myself into a way of thinking that, like, your goal is basically to focus on playing each hand as perfectly as possible, and, like,
it's not any more fun to do something exciting and bad than
right
to just make the right play and fold.
Pretty much, yeah. Like, if you think about it, it's kind of like arbitrary. Like, why is the solution to being bored playing more hands? It doesn't really make sense from any perspective. I'm still thinking analytically and trying to play the game as well as I can.
Well, a lot of people, it seems anyway, and I think a lot of people are curious to know, I certainly am, you see people in televised games going crazy with hands, whether it's 7 deuce or, whatever. Do people just do that because the cameras are rolling and they're trying to be talked about, and it's sort of either an ego thing or a bragging thing?
Yeah, absolutely. I think most of it comes down to sponsorship deals. Like, people want to get that UB logo out on TV, and, if they're playing 7 deuce off, that's more TV time for them.
do either of you ever get involved in hands that you might not for that reason? Just, so there can be a YouTube clip of you, 5-bet shoving with 8-3 against somebody?
I mean, I try not to, but there's definitely a small pull in that direction.
Yeah, it's kind of nice if you pull off a big bluff, but it looks really bad if you get called with that big bluff, so it definitely works both ways.
Right. Well, I mean, ultimately, since there aren't a whole lot of hands, it would seem to me that eventually, if you're not getting playable cards, then, if you want to get any TV time, you have to start doing something. So
yeah.
I guess it sort of makes sense. But how do these shows work? I mean, from home, we're watching poker shows like High Stakes Poker and soon to be The Big Game. And we're watching, let's say a 12 one-hour episode season.
Mm-hmm.
How many hours are they actually putting at the table? Like, when you guys filmed The Big Game, were you just there for 1 hour and they show that hour on TV? Or did you play a 5-hour session and they're going to sort of cut it up and show 60 minutes of that? How does that work?
The way The Big Game worked was that every day was 150 hands, and that's going to be turned into 5 episodes. So roughly drawing from 30 hands per episode, they're going to cut that down to 5, 6, 7, 8, some hands like that they show in the course of an hour of TV.
Yeah, but it definitely changes a lot from show to show. Ike and I did a show also called The Big Game somehow in London, where it was literally just 48 hours straight of filming. And they're going to turn that into, 13 90-minute episodes?
With different players?
Something like that.
Players coming in
players
and going?
Cycling in that game. Viffer and Neil Channing played the full 48 hours.
Yeah, but it's continuous. There was no, cast change for new episodes or anything.
Yeah.
Okay.
No real breaks of any sort. There was, 2 half-hour breaks for sandwiches in the entire 48 hours or something like that.
Yeah, probably 3 or 4 breaks, but yeah.
Yeah.
So 150 hands, in online terms, that's like, a nanosecond. That's literally when you're
I was playing 2 tables heads up with a guy just before coming here. We played 150 hands in about 40 minutes, something like that.
Okay. Well, and I generally play 8 or 9 tables, and I play probably, I don't know, maybe
probably about 1,000 hands.
Yeah, I want to say about 1,000 hands an hour. So that's 10 minutes pretty much almost or whatever. Let's see. So you mentioned the UB logo here, my lovely UB logo.
I get paid for this, right?
Oh, yeah, of course.
Sweet.
When I start getting paid, you'll start getting paid. No, I'm just kidding. So why, I noticed that you guys, some of the most elite high-stakes cash game players, Phil Galfond, Scott Seaver, and, of course, you guys, you don't have sponsorship deals. Why is that? Is it because the sponsors are more looking for players on the tournament circuit, or are you guys just, valuing your endorsement values higher than what the sites are offering? Why is it that so many players like yourselves don't have endorsement deals?
Certainly the latter. If we weren't valuing ourselves higher than the sites were, we would have deals. It's not like none of us have ever been offered anything by any poker site.
Yeah, it changes a lot from player to player. For the two of us, we've both been offered deals that we've turned down. There are other players out there, like Jungle Man, for example. He's one of the best high-stakes heads-up players. Just most people haven't heard of him, so there's not really much value.
Yeah, I don't think he's 21 yet. Hasn't really played any live tournaments.
Yeah, and then there's Phil.
Is he sponsored or is he?
No, he's not.
Okay.
Even though he's one of the best.
So that certainly makes sense that he doesn't have a whole lot of, name for himself yet beyond playing online.
And then there's guys like Phil Galfond that are at the opposite end. They probably just value themselves so highly, and he also has his own companies that he's doing stuff with. So it really just depends on the person.
Right.
I think that people like us are currently in a really great position to be realizing some of that value in the near future with online poker becoming legal in the U.S. Companies like Harrah's are going to be entering the market, and they're going to be looking for people to sponsor, and it's going to be the well-known, unaffiliated players who are going to be getting huge deals.
Yeah, I certainly hope that is the case. I think a lot of us do. But also, I mean, realistically, you guys, you play very big stakes. You both win a lot of money, which, anybody could pretty much look up and see, estimated numbers, type of income you guys are generating. So I think it also is probably safe to say that the sponsorship money that people like myself make and other, maybe players on the tournament circuit is probably a little less significant to you guys when you're playing for, cash games where you're, putting hundreds of thousands of dollars up at stake.
I'm still hoping for the Ivy deal. I'm hoping they'll give me, 10% of full tilt, and that'll probably be worth it to me.
Okay. You hear that, Howard?
I don't know, 10% of a multi-billion-dollar company seems like I'd probably take it. I'd have to consider it.
I think so. Well, I mean, if it paid rakeback in like $35 an hour, then certainly that would push you over the top. So let me, like I said, I ranted earlier on this whole poker training, people becoming poker instructors. Do you guys have an opinion on that? I mean, have you ever considered becoming a poker instructor, like for one of these online sites, or do you think that's just very foolish for guys to do?
I have nothing categorically against it. I was briefly an instructor for Poker Savvy. I was making a lot less money doing it than it had been represented to me that I was likely to make, and was enjoying it less than I had hoped I would, so I quit. But I don't think there's anything wrong with doing it. I think that very likely a lot of people are not getting a good deal for their time doing it. It takes more time than you would think, especially if you want to do a good job. It's not, just turn on Camtasia and mumble for an hour while you play as you normally do. There are a lot of videos out that are more or less exactly that.
Yeah, I think it's kind of an interesting industry where the best players in the world, they make so much money that they're not going to make these videos. So what you have is a lot of trainers that they're okay, they're helping out a lot of people, but they're not really the best players in the world. The truth is most of them need money when they take their deals because there's not that much money in most of the deals. It's not enough to entice most of the high stakes players. Like
right.
Durr, for example, would have to own like the vast majority of a site to ever consider making videos.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, that's what's happening. These guys are making videos for $500 or $1,000 per video, and the person that's running the site is making $100,000 per person. Or sorry, $100 per person that signs up. So with 1,000 members, you've made $100,000 just in the sign-up fees, plus like $20,000 a month, charging $20 per head. So the money, I mean, there's a huge opportunity as far as business, business standpoint to generate, income doing that. But the players are getting paid so little.
I don't think they're mostly getting bad deals. I think that they're mostly pretty mediocre and replaceable, and that there's a ton of people who are willing to make a video for $1,000.
Exactly.
And for the most part, their content isn't that good, and not that the sites are getting a bad deal. The sites are making money off of it, the biggest ones anyway. Some of the smaller ones don't seem to be doing that well.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's unfortunate for a lot of like the 1-2 grinders out there because a lot of their information's being leaked. But I think for the high stakes community, there's still a lot of information that's just never been out there. So the videos really haven't revealed everything just yet.
Right. So you guys have been very helpful, very informative. Do you have any advice that you would give to people that are trying to, aspiring to be professional poker players and climb up through the ranks, either in tournaments or cash games like you guys have done?
Play Isaac heads up.
Seems to work
high
out well.
stakes.
Bankroll management is the thing I always mention when somebody asks a question like that. There are so many people who are good enough at poker that they could succeed as professional poker players and don't because they play higher stakes than they should and lose all their money.
Yeah, whenever people ask me if there's one piece of advice I can give them, I always give the same answer. Never stop learning. Just treat the game like it's chess. Treat the game like you spend 50 years learning it and you'll still have more to learn. And if you're just always improving, that's a steady progression that'll pay off in the end.
Yeah, so many people get 2 or 3 years into their poker career and maybe they don't think they're the best in the world, maybe they do, but they think they're as good as they're going to get, and they stop trying. And 2 or 3 more years after that, they're not beating the games anymore.
I think that's the case with a lot of the well-known original guys that were there when poker became popular on TV. I think a lot of the original, biggest names in poker are not up to date. In fact, they're very out of date on where their game stands relative to the competition, and that's probably why you don't see a lot of these people in tournaments anymore. Mm-hmm. Other than maybe at the World Series, they're off doing charity events or hosting corporate functions or whatever it is. But it's funny that people don't realize that it's so important to keep learning and learning and learning, just like you guys say.
Negreanu's a great counterexample to that. One of the old guard guys who has continued getting better and working on his game and talks about it all the time. Has been playing a lot of cash online recently with the toughest players and working hard on his game and talking a lot about how he's trying to, update his game a little bit.
Yeah, as someone that's played a lot of 100, 200 with him recently, I think it's been really interesting to read his blogs and see him admit, the mistakes he's been making and how he's been learning. And he's definitely been one of the fastest improvers I've ever seen online so far.
Well, that's cool. Well, he certainly has a pretty good foundation to work from.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So I would expect him to learn much quicker. Awesome. Well, thank you guys for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you on. You guys are great guests, and hopefully we can have you on, at a future date as well.
Absolutely.
Right.
Great. Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of Under the Gun. Make sure to tune in again next week, where I will be playing golf at Matt Savage's Invitational Tournament in Temecula, California. I will bring the camera crews out there, talk to some players, hopefully talk to Matt Savage himself, and you guys can see how great or pathetic my golf game is, depending on the day, because I'm probably the most inconsistent golfer ever. And then, of course, we will return back here to Vegas in the Rio for the World Series of Poker. We're all looking forward to that. And don't forget, follow me on Twitter for your chance to win a free poker lesson by me. I think I'm at about 650, 660 followers. When I get to 1,000, I will be doing a random drawing for one person to win a poker lesson by me. So make sure to follow me on Twitter at Jon Friedberg. And also, don't forget to get your account on UB. You can check out my website for more details on that, www.jonfriedberg.com. Thanks again for tuning in. I'll see you guys next week.